some more quadrilaterals. We got kites and trapezoids now. This first one, trapezoid. Okay, trapezoid. It's got one set of parallel lines, and we're going to talk about a more familiar looking trapezoid when we get over here. But right now, you could have a weird looking trapezoid just as long as there is one set of parallel lines. So like if that's parallel to that one, then that's a trapezoid. Parallel sides are called bases. So like this top one and bottom one, those would both be called bases. And then the two other sides would be called legs. The other type of quadrilateral we're going to talk about is a kite. And it's a quadrilateral with two pairs of congruent sides. So two sets of congruent sides. Like this is congruent to that. And that is congruent to that in a kite. It says one diagonal divides the kite into two congruent triangles. That would be this one. You got a congruent triangle over here and over here. And what else? Diagonals are perpendicular. So there's one diagonal. If I were to draw another one perpendicular like that, that means we got right angles in the middle. That's going to help out a little bit. We're going to use Pythagorean theorem to solve for sides. And one pair of opposite angles are congruent. Well, if I draw another one, I've kind of messed that one all up. So if I got a kite, then this angle is opposite of that one, and those are congruent. This one's too skinny to be congruent. Like this one's fatter than this one on the bottom. So there's always one set of congruent opposite angles. Okay. Some more vocabulary. We've got the mid segment. The mid segment is the segment that connects the midpoints of a trapezoid's leg. So if I'm looking at these legs right here and I take the midpoint of that thing and the midpoint of this thing, then we'll have another line that goes straight across. And the mid segment of a trapezoid is halfway to each base. So halfway to each base, and its length is 1/2 the sum of the lengths of the bases. It's a lot of prepositional phrases right there. So let's just write it like this. Let's say the mid segment equals 1/2 the sum. So this is 1/2. I'm going to divide by 2. The sum of the lengths of the bases. Well, the bases are the top and the bottom. So let's just write top, bottom there. Okay. And, if I were to ask you, give you two quiz grades and say one of them's an 80, one of them's a 90, and I say, find the average of your quiz grades, you would add the 80 and the 90, divide by 2, and get 85. Well, if I'm adding two things divided by 2, I'm just finding the average. So the mid segment is average of the top and the bottom. Okay. A trapezoid with congruent base angles. This is an isosceles trapezoid. Okay. And that's the one that most people are most familiar with. Congruent base angles, that would be that. It's congruent to that. That's congruent to that. And, okay, those are congruent. These are congruent base angles. This leg is congruent to this leg in an isosceles trapezoid. Okay, so let's look over here. We've got, looks like one isosceles trapezoid right here. And I got to solve for x. Several different ways I could do this. One of those ways is, it just makes the most sense to me. These are diagonals. And if this is isosceles, that means that this whole line right here is congruent to this whole line right there, thanks to those legs being congruent. And this is a little bit longer method, but I think that it's most visual. 3x plus 6x minus 5, that's this whole line right here. That whole line is congruent to this whole line right here. So I'm going to say equals 5x plus 2 plus 21. This would be 9x minus 5 equals 5x plus 23. this would be, so when I subtract the x over, I get 4x. When I add the 5 over, I get 28. That would be x equals 7. Okay. Here's a mid-segment problem. And up here, we just said that the mid-segment is halfway. It's the average of the top and the bottom. So that means that 18 is the average of the top. So add them and divide by 2. Average of the top and the bottom. The next question is, how do I solve that? A lot of people like to multiply by 2 on both sides to kind of get rid of that 2. I like to make it a same thing. I like to make it a proportion, cross multiply. You get 2 times 18 equals x plus 3x times 1 is just x plus 3x. So this is 36 equals 4x, x equals 9. Same style question over here. Average of the top and the bottom. So 2x plus 8x plus 3.2 over 2. So add those, divide by 2. Equals the middle number, 17.1. Decimals are the worst. So if I want to kind of combine like terms, I got 10x plus 3.2 over 2 equals 17.1. And I'm going to make that a proportion, cross multiply. So that would be 10x plus 3.2 times 1 is just that, equals 2 times 17.1. That is 34.2. When I subtract this 3.2 over, I get 10x equals 31, and divide by 10, I will get 3.1. Okay. I'll let you try that other one. Answer is 14, I think. Down here, got some kite problems. The following are kites. Solve for x. Well, these are the set of congruent angles. So those are opposite of each other. These are opposite of each other, but we already have our set that are congruent. So I know that in a quadrilateral, there's a total of 360 degrees. So I know that if I add all of these up, they will equal 360 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to say x plus x over here, combine like terms, 360 equals 2x, and then 83 and 41, I think that's 124. And I'm going to subtract the 124 over and get 236 equals 2x, and then divide by 2, x equals 118. A lot of times you see these problems with a y right here, like they'll put a y right there, and you just need to know that those are the same, and you would make them both x, like over here. So like that says x and y. You can make this an x because you know that those are those opposite angles that are congruent in a kite, and do the same steps to solve. And then at the end, you would just have a x equals something, and then y would equal the same thing because those are congruent. Okay. Let's look at this problem right here. At some point up in our definition of kites, we said that the diagonals are perpendicular. Okay, the diagonals are perpendicular. And so when I look right here, I know that there are right angles everywhere in there. Okay. And so if I want to solve for x, I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to say x squared plus 5 squared equals 13 squared. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. C squared is always the longest side, the hypotenuse. This would be x squared plus 25 equals 169. Subtract the 25 over, you get 144. X is going to equal 12. Okay. And if I want to solve for y, I've got one leg. I've got the hypotenuse, but I don't have this leg. Well, I just solved and got this is 12. So that means that this is 12 as well. So I'm going to say 9 squared plus 12 squared equals the hypotenuse squared, y. So that's 81 plus 144 equals y squared. And that's 225 equals y squared. Take a square root, y equals 15. All right, I want to look at some other practice problems with kites and trapezoids. So we're wanting to find the perimeter. And I know that a kite, if that's 12, then this is going to be 12. If that's 20, that's going to be 20. So perimeter, you just add up all the sides. Perimeter equals 12 plus 12 plus 20 plus 20. So that is, I believe, 64. 32 and 32, 64. Okay. Guess we could write it up here, 64. Let's look at this one, number 3 down here. So this is an isosceles trapezoid. So I know that the base angles are congruent. So like this angle is congruent to this angle, and this angle is congruent to this angle. So y is really easy. It's 128. So that's 128. And a couple different ways to go about this. I know that 128 and x are going to be supplementary, but we may or may not have talked about that. So I'm going to put an x over here since the base angles are congruent. And then I know that all the angles are going to add up to 360. So I'm going to say x plus 128 plus 128. That's 360 equals 2x plus 256. And I'm going to subtract the 256 over. When I subtract the 256 over, I think I get 104. I think it's 104. And then when I divide by 2, x equals 52. That's good because when I plug that in, 52 plus 128, that gives me 180. Okay, that's a good thing. Let's look at this one. Very important information here. Well, let's do this first. What do we know about the picture? Well, it's a kite, so that means if that's 3y, that's 3y. If this is 6y minus 2, then this is 6y minus 2. Very, very important information, and a lot of these have this very important information. Kite's perimeter is 86 feet. So perimeter is adding up all the sides. So if I take 86, the perimeter, and add up all the sides, I can solve for y. There is no x here. I don't know why that's there. Okay. So perimeter is 86 equals adding up all the sides. And that's true on a lot of these problems like this one. It gives you the perimeter. You know that's x. Add up all the sides. Solve for x. Same thing right here. If that's y plus 12, this is y plus 12. Add up all the sides equals 164. So let's look back at this one. 86 equals combined like terms 3 plus 3 plus 6 plus 6. I think that's 18y. And then that's minus 4. I'm going to add the 4 over and get 90 equals 18y. Divide by 18, I think y equals 5. Okay, kind of the last style that these ask you. This is a kite. I know that the diagonals are perpendicular, so I got right angles. All of these are right angles in there. And it also told me that, we have one diagonal that cuts it into congruent triangles. So if this is x over there, then that's x right there. I could solve by x by looking at just this triangle. I know that there's 180 total degrees in a triangle. So I could say 180 equals x plus 18 plus, what's the box? Box is 90. So that's 180 equals x plus combined like terms, that's 108. Take the 108 over, I think you get 72. So x is 72 degrees. Similarly, if that's 29, then this is 29 over here. And this is a right triangle, just like the other ones are. And I could say 180 total degrees in a triangle. I'm just looking at this bottom left triangle right here. 180 equals y plus 29 plus 90. That's what the box is. Each of those angles added together. I'd have 180 equals y plus 119. Combine like terms. Subtract the 119 over there, and I would get 61 degrees.